Bianca, how do you read so much? Bianca, I just don't have time to read. I get these questions from people in my real life all the time, and usually my answer resembles something like this, where I just don't know how to answer, and I kind of say something along the lines of, I don't know. I just do it. But I sat down and I did the math and compiled this list, so now I can just refer those questions to this video. So today I'm going to give you my 5 main tips on how I get through so many books in a year and a bonus 6th one at the end. But I'm just some girl sitting on the floor with a mic, so why should you listen to me? So here are the completed books that I have read this year, and that totals to 34 thus far. I'd read somewhere a long time ago that the number of books the average person reads in a year is somewhere between 0 and 5, so 34 is definitely more than your typical person. I am also a full-time student and I have a part-time job. I am a senior getting my computer science degree and I am a nanny, yet somehow I am getting my pages in. There will be timestamps in the description as per usual. Feel free to skip around if you like. Let's get on with it. Tip number 1 is audiobooks. I'm not even going to dignify the are audiobooks considered real reading debate with a proper argument because absolutely yes, it is reading. If you listen to an audiobook, you have read the book. You have to be strategic about when you listen to your audiobooks. I put on audiobooks all the time. I listen to audiobooks while I'm driving, while I'm walking from home to campus, or walking from class to class, while I'm working sometimes when the baby's napping. If your job does have some busy work sort of moments or mindless tasks that need to be done, audiobooks are a great option to put on during those times. I also combine my audiobook listening with my other hobbies that I do for fun, like journaling. I spend a lot of time dedicated to my reading journal, and I can just not think of a more relaxing night than going to the library, grabbing my journal, taking out my Crayolas, and popping in my headphones, listening to an audiobook and drawing and coloring and making cute little spreads. I also listen to audiobooks while I'm cooking, especially when I make sandwiches for lunch. That's like such an underrated time to listen to a book. And when I'm eating my lunch, just these little tasks that you're gonna do anyways throughout the day, why not listen to a book and get in a couple of pages at the same time? If there is nothing that I need to actively listen to, then that is just invitation. My brain just clicks. I'm listening to an audiobook. Okay, that's exactly what's going on. But what about music? What if you like listening to music? Cool, so do I. Listening to audiobooks during these off moments does not mean that you have to swear off music at all. I do both. I kind of just see how I'm feeling. On my commute to work in the morning, I'll usually listen to, honestly, most of the time nothing because it's so early in the morning and I kind of need time to just become a human again. But if I am feeling like listening to something, more likely than not, it's going to be music in the morning because I just don't really have the brain capacity yet to listen to a story. But inevitably throughout my breaks during the day and my drive home and just all the random things that I have to do day to day, I am listening to at least a little bit of an audiobook every single day. I truly don't know what I would do without it. The amount of books I read in a year just significantly leveled up once I started incorporating audiobooks into the lineup. But Bianca, I can't afford to buy an audiobook every time I want to read something. You don't have to. May I introduce you to a little app called Libby, formerly known as Overdrive and sometimes still known as Overdrive. Basically, if you have access to a public library, you more than likely have access to Libby. And if not Libby, there is another app called Hoopla, which I also use, but I prefer Libby's interface. But Hoopla has plenty of selections as well. They also have shows, movies. There's a lot of different types of media to rent on Hoopla. So Libby is basically your local library's e-library. In the same way that you would borrow a book from your library and return it when you are finished, you check out a book on Libby and then you can return it when you're done listening to it or reading it. They have audiobooks and ebooks. They have newspapers, all sorts of things. You just got to find out what your library offers. Ever since discovering Libby, my life has been changed. I am a library card connoisseur now. I think I have 5 of them. And whenever somebody brings up having a library card in conversation, I'm like, what's the digits? Share the deeds. Give me your library card information so I can add it to my Libby account, please. I'm begging you. Because you can add as many library cards as you want to the app, and then you have access to all of those library systems. And if you don't find the book that you want from one library, more often than not, another library has it. I used to pay for audiobooks through Audible, which is also another fine resource if you have the coin to spend on it. But since discovering Libby, I've canceled my Audible subscription, and I really never pay for digital forms of books because everything I want is on there. I'm giving you Ariana Grande hands. Tip number 2 is DNFing books. I am the biggest supporter of DNFing books. Why are we reading books that we don't like? Why do you hate yourself? Why are you a masochist? Why are you forcing yourself to go through things you don't want to go through, putting yourself through unnecessary trauma? You're making reading terrible. Stop turning reading into a chore. Only read books that you actually love. I DNF, or do not finish, is what the acronym is, books all the time. Bring back reading the first couple chapters of a book, and if you don't like it, put it down. I love browsing the library and just reading the beginnings of things. I see a lot of people online who have a moral objection to DNFing books, and they force themselves to finish every single book that they start. And I just don't understand it. If that's how you are, please explain to me in the comments why you feel so inclined, because I just will never understand. I feel like if I didn't DNF books, I would be in reading slump after reading slump, because some books just are not meant for you, and other books are just not meant for you at that time. There have been so many books that I'll start, I put down for a little while because I'm no longer enjoying it, and then I come back weeks later, months later, years later sometimes, and then I love it when I go back to it because I didn't push myself to read it when I was not in the headspace to read it. So do yourself a favor. If you are having a hard time picking up a book or listening to your audiobook, for some reason you just don't want to read, pick up something else. Just let yourself have fun. Try something new, and don't feel guilty about abandoning some other book. You know, it's not your firstborn child. They will be okay without you. And one of the things that has enabled me to be able to DNF so freely is getting a library card. Some of you chickens have forgotten that the library exists. Why am I seeing comments on booktube videos online about how people would love to read some book, but they can't afford reading as a hobby? They can't afford to go buy this book and read and enjoy it. What happened to all the libraries? Libraries are my favorite places to be in the world. I love going to new libraries. The county that I live in right now has like 20 different libraries that my one library card allows me access to all of them. So you know I've been to 20 out of 20, baby. I love to explore new libraries. If you go back into the deep, dark, scary place that is my channel from a year ago, you will see that I had a crazy amount of books. Over 200. I don't even think I had the peak number of books when I was making those videos. I accumulated far more after I had stopped making videos at that point. I'll show you a couple pictures now if I can find any, but having that amount of books was just incredibly overwhelming. I felt like I constantly had a backlist of things to get to. Every time I opened up a new book, I felt guilty that I wasn't picking any of the other books that theoretically should have been higher on my priority list. Felt like this shadow just looming over me all the time. Books saying, read me, Bianca, you forgot about us. You bought me like a year ago. Read me. And this might be a niche experience, a niche problem, but it genuinely just crippled my reading habits so much because it was so overwhelming picking something every single time. So I sold like 95% of my books. I currently only own 19 books, and 7 of them are just Harry Potter books from my childhood. And I now just go to the library every single weekend and I just walk around through the aisles and browse different books. I open things up, read a couple chapters, put them away, find something new, allow myself to just explore totally different genres and authors that I never heard of, and it feels like zero pressure because I can take as many books as I'd like home, and it doesn't even matter if I read them or not. I've taken home upwards of 20 books at a time from the library and read none of them and end up reading something on my phone. And you know what? I feel zero guilt because I've spent nothing and I can just bring them back the next day or the next week or 4 weeks because I'm allowed to keep them for a month, and then I'm allowed to renew them after that if I don't finish it in time. And it is just freedom in a way that I never knew. Now, if you're on the opposite end of the spectrum where you don't have a lot of books and you would love to have more books, the library is still a wonderful solution to that too, because I take home a stack of books, I put them on my shelf, and it feels like I have a nice big populated home library. Let me show you what I have checked out right now. These are all the books. Just look at how many freaking books I have right now. And this is light for me. Not weight-wise, that was actually very heavy, but it's a light amount of books for me to have checked out at once. Usually I have like 10 or 15 at home at any given time. I feel like people also just don't know how good the selection at libraries can be. If you don't live in an area that has a great selection, then you can go to the county over and choose from their selection. They're usually pretty darn good. Like, I can find any viral romance, TikTok, fantasy, whatever book that I want at the library. There are very, very few books that I have not been able to find at my library. And mind you, the library that is closest to me, their selection is not very good. But if I go a 10-minute drive, the libraries in the next towns over, their selection, A1. And if you don't have a car or reliable transportation to get to those libraries, if your library is anything like mine, you can just put in a request and they will ship it to your home library so that you can read. The 2 books in the past 2 years that I have not been able to find through my library system, I just told the librarian and then they contacted a whole separate county in a different part of the state and had the book shipped to my county and then to my local library so that I could read those books. I just love the library so much, and I hate to see people thinking that they can't become booktubers or they can't read certain books that they would really like to read because of financial barriers. Because one of the things that makes reading so special is that it's supposed to cost nothing. There's supposed to be no financial barrier to entry to enjoying books. So please, if you have access to a library card is going to make the biggest difference in your reading, whether that be physical or getting audiobooks or ebooks on Libby. It is just wonderful. So tip number 4 is to make a reading journal or any sort of system so that you can keep track of the things that you're reading, when you're reading them, when you finish books, because it is very motivating to see pen on paper progress of the things that you've read throughout the year. So this is is my reading journal. It is from Notebook Therapy, and I take a lot of inspiration from the channels Katie is Reading and Cassandra Lynn. I'm going to be filming an in-depth flip through at the end of the year, so I'm not going to show you everything, but here are a few examples of some of the spreads that I've made throughout this year. One of the things I do also while I'm at the library is use their printer to print out the book covers of all the books I've read, and then I cut them out and paste them here into this spread because I don't have the physical books, so I'd like to memorialize them somehow since they don't live at home with me. I also make my own little bookshelf. God, the colors are so fugly, but you know, next year's will be nicer. I also like to make little monthly spreads and then reviews of books that I really liked. Like this is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. And even if you don't want to draw things out yourself, you can print things out. Like I read Golden Sun by Pierce Brown this year and I loved that book so much, so I just printed out a bunch of fan art that I found on Pinterest. And something I did for this month was separating my current reads, obsessions, library checkouts, books finished, and stats which are yet to be filled. So as I finish a book, I get to check off the little box, and that is so satisfying. Basically, the moral of the story is you don't have to use a journal. You can use a spreadsheet, you can use a Google Doc, a pen and paper, your phone notes app. Keep track of the things that you're reading or when you start them, whatever it is that makes you feel proud of yourself for finishing a book or just helps you organize all the things that you're reading in your mind since you're DNFing so many books and you're starting new ones because you love yourself. This is my third reading journal. I had two before. I threw the old two out because I'm crazy. I wish I had kept them, but in my first reading journal, I had made this one spread where I made a circle for every single day of the month. Actually, I have something similar in this one. Something along these lines where there was a box or a circle for every single day, and then every day that I read, I got to color in one of those boxes, and it was very motivating. It helped me keep track of actually how much am I reading, and you can be as detailed or as not detailed as you'd like with it. I think when I first did that spread, I was even writing in how many pages I was reading that day and from which books in particular. I don't do that anymore because I know that I read every single day. It's just become a habit and something that I can't live without. So yeah, get organized with it. Bringing awareness is the most important step to anything that you want to change about your life. So if you would genuinely want to read more books, then just keep track of how many books you're reading, how many pages you're reading, and you'll find that the act of tracking it just puts it on your mind more easily, and you just start reading more subconsciously. It's like not even something you have to try to do so much. It's just gonna happen. Tip number 5, you are already so good at. It is watching booktubers that make you excited about reading. I watch booktube quite widely and quite diversely. I watch a lot of creators who have very similar taste to my own and super different taste to my own. If I'm being totally real, most of the creators that I like actually have super different tastes than mine, and I don't listen to the recommendations because I know that we just like different things. But it's like having a little internet friend who gets you hyped to read books and reminds you that books are cool. Several of the YouTubers that I watch also have online book clubs where they read with their subscribers. A couple that come to mind are Emmy and Carolyn Marie Reads. They have their Game of Tomes book club, which they host on Fable, which is another good resource if you're looking for other people to read with. You can join Fable. It's like book social media where you can talk to other people who are reading the same book as you. Like you can search by that book and then join a club for other people who are reading it. And Katie is Reading has a book club on her Patreon that I believe is $5 a month, which I actually subscribed to for a month or two, and that was really cool. And then there are tons of people who are just on the YouTube platform who do live streaming or just general regular content like this video that hopefully inspires you to want to read more. On the flip side, only consume content that makes you feel good about you and your reading life and whatever it is you're going through. There's some booktube creators that I have to watch sparingly, so if it's something that makes you feel like you're comparing yourself or just not good vibes, then maybe limit that or unsubscribe. Like I said, they're not your firstborn child. They will be okay without you, me included in this. If hearing the number of books that I read makes you feel bad about how many books you read, you don't have to watch this. My hope and my goal with making this channel is to inspire you to read more books if you don't read any books, or if you already are reading books, then to just maybe introduce you to new books that you might not have heard of before, and overall just share the love of books and libraries. All right, so now we get to the bonus tip for the chickens who have stuck around this long, and that is starting a booktube channel. Today, as I am filming this, I believe I have 57 subscribers, which is very little, but I like making YouTube videos because I love talking about books. So if you want some motivation on how to read more books, then maybe commit to posting a video every single time you finish a book. Maybe you make a review about it, or you can start making vlog content and showing how much you read in a week just so you can keep track of how much reading you're actually doing. Making a booktube also just connects you with other people who are just as excited about books as you are. It has genuinely been such a fun hobby to be able to talk about books as much as I want for as long as I want and put it online and have other people who like books just as much as me comment about the books that they love too and get to have conversations with them. I also just love commenting on other YouTubers whose content I enjoy. I'll say something about whatever books that they show, and depending on how big of a YouTuber they are, sometimes they do respond back and then we have like a little conversation about books, which is just so fun and wholesome. And with that, we are at the conclusion of the video. Those were my best tips that I think I can give you on how to read more if you'd like to do so. Also, just keeping in mind that any reading is better than no reading. So if you are happy with how many books books you read in a year, whether that be 1 or 10 or 300, then just keep doing what you're doing. I really hope you enjoyed this video and got some good inspiration or just good vibes. If you have any other tips on how to get more reading done or ways that you read that I didn't mention, then please leave them in the comments down below. I love to respond to them. And make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. Hello. Why can I not see anything? ASMR flipping pages. How's that sound? Do you like that, chickens? Hey. Wow. Isn't that original?